Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're tackling the history of football. I think most people know the basics, right?
Sure, yeah.
But we're going to go way deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like way, way back.
Okay.
Like thousands of years.
Wow.
So, are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so first up,
Okay.
the Mesoamerican Juego de Pelota.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one.
This one goes back like 3,500 years.
Oh.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's a long time.
So it's not just like kicking a ball around.
No, not at all.
It was like a huge part of their whole culture,
Yeah.
like their beliefs and rituals.
Exactly. What's captivating about Juego de Pelota is that it wasn't just a sport. It was a reflection of their worldview.
Yeah, like,
Like the ball represented the sun. And
Yes.
the game itself was like a symbolic representation of the cosmos.
oh, wow. So they were playing out the movements of the universe, like on a court.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the stakes were incredibly high.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, their book, the Popol Vuh,
Right.
it tells a story
Okay.
about hero twins who play the game,
Mm-hmm.
and like their victory leads them to become the sun and the moon.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, imagine playing a game where your win could like elevate you to godlike status.
It's amazing to think how a game could be that important to a culture.
Yeah.
What was the game like to actually play?
Oh, it was physically demanding.
Okay.
And players used their hips
Oh.
or forearms
Oh, wow.
to maneuver this like heavy rubber ball
Uh-huh.
through stone rings.
Oh, I've seen those rings at like Chichen Itza and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can still see them at ancient sites like that. And it really gives you a sense of the skill and athleticism involved.
They're huge. It must have been a serious workout.
Oh, for sure.
But there's this whole debate too, right?
Yeah.
About like whether the winners or losers were sacrificed.
Right. That's one of the things shrouded in mystery,
Yeah.
the details.
Hmm.
But, you know, the idea that death in this context was seen as an honor.
Oh, okay.
It just speaks volumes about how important the game was to them, to their culture.
So it wasn't just entertainment. It was like
Ro.
deeply tied to their beliefs and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It was deeply tied to their religious beliefs and their societal structure.
And here's something I just can't get over.
What's that?
This game didn't totally disappear.
Oh, right. It lives on.
Modern forms like ulama still exist. They're played in like Mexico, Belize, Guatemala,
Oh,
and even parts of the United States.
that's pretty amazing.
It's like this living connection to the past.
It is. It really is. What's interesting is that it's specifically the version of ulama that uses the hip,
Okay.
while other body parts were used in the past. So,
Why do you think that technique stuck around?
well, remember how we were talking about like that cosmic connection?
Yeah.
So the hip represents fertility,
Oh, okay.
and so it kind of reinforces the symbolic meaning.
Right.
And like the players, they symbolize the planets,
Mm-hmm.
and they shouldn't collide, just like the planets in their celestial dance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So it's like the core symbolic elements were preserved even as the game evolved.
exactly. Exactly. And, you know, speaking of connections to the past,
Yeah.
you won't believe this.
What?
Hernan Cortez was so impressed by Juego de Pelota
No way.
that he actually brought players back to Spain in 1528.
Wow. Seriously?
Yeah, to show it off to Emperor Charles V.
No way. Talk about a cultural exchange moment.
It's amazing how these ancient games transcended cultural boundaries. Like the athleticism, the strategy, the sheer spectacle of it all clearly resonated, even with people from completely different cultures.
Ready for another trip.
Always. Where are we going?
Okay, let's head to ancient China now
Good,
to
okay.
discover Cuju. This one is recognized by FIFA as like an actual precursor to modern football. And get this.
Yeah.
It dates back to the 3rd century BC.
Wow, that's even older.
I know, right? Crazy.
So what was this game all about?
Okay, so in Cuju, you've got 2 teams
Right.
using just their feet.
Okay, so no hands.
No hands to maneuver this leather ball filled with feathers and hair.
Feathers and hair. Wow, that's a different kind of ball.
I know, right? Can you imagine trying to bend it like Beckham with that thing?
It sounds like a real test of skill, that's for sure.
It was, and it was a test of agility, too.
So was this just a recreational thing, or did it have a purpose?
It started as a military training exercise, actually,
Oh, interesting.
during the Han Dynasty.
Okay.
So it was about developing agility, coordination, and teamwork.
Essential skills on the battlefield. So from boot camp to the pitch, that's quite a transition.
I know, right? But it didn't stay confined to the military for long. Cuju blew up across all social classes.
Really? Wow.
Even emperors were into it.
Of course, everyone loves a good game.
By the Tang Dynasty, it was a common pastime.
So how did the game change over time?
Well, that's when we start to see air-filled balls.
Oh,
And even goals that look a lot like nets, so it's like a clear step toward the modern game.
that's fascinating how those elements we see in modern football were already there centuries ago.
I know, it's amazing.
So who was playing this game? Just men.
It reached its peak during the Song Dynasty, which was like the 10th to 13th centuries.
Okay.
And that's when we start to see professional teams.
Professional teams.
Ugh.
Seriously.
Yeah. Complete with coaches, sponsors. Does that sound familiar?
It's like they were laying the groundwork for the modern sporting industry. It's incredible. What about women? Were they involved at all?
There are records that say there were women's teams during the Song Dynasty.
Wow. So the love for the game transcended gender boundaries, even back then.
It really did. So Cuju fostered athletic skill and social connection, and it also spread beyond China, right?
It did. It made its way to neighboring regions. In Japan, it eventually evolved into something called Kemari.
Okay, so let's dive into Kemari. How is it different from Cuju?
Well, Cuju is all about competition,
Right.
but Kemari was different.
How so?
It was more about teamwork and finesse.
Okay.
So imagine a group of players just gracefully passing a leather ball filled with sawdust this time,
Okay.
trying to keep it in the air for as long as possible. It was a beautiful display of skill and coordination.
That's so cool. So from a military drill to a social pastime in China, then it becomes this graceful display of skill in Japan.
It really highlights how a simple game can evolve and adapt across different cultures, reflecting different values and priorities. I mean, we also can't forget Sepak Takraw
Oh, yeah, that was amazing.
that emerged in Southeast Asia in the 15th century.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like football meets volleyball, right?
it really is.
Yeah.
The players use their feet, their knees, their chest, even their heads to keep a rattan ball in the air. It's a spectacle of athleticism and skill.
It's mesmerizing to watch.
It is. So we've seen how ball games evolved in Asia, but now let's shift our focus back to Europe. Ancient Greece, to be exact.
Right. Time travel back to ancient Greece.
Back about 4,000 years
Yeah.
to a game called Episkyros.
Yeah, okay.
It's another FIFA-recognized precursor to football. And,
Uh-oh. This is where things get rough, right?
well, it did have a reputation, especially in Sparta, for being a bit rough.
Okay, so how was it played?
Well, you've got two teams of like 12 to 14 players each,
Okay.
using both their hands and feet to move the ball towards the opponent's goal line. It was all about strength, strategy, and let's just say the Spartans weren't known for their gentle touch.
So the game reflected their warrior culture.
Absolutely. It required teamwork,
Right.
coordination, and a strong defense, all qualities that were highly valued in Spartan society.
You're right.
It's interesting to note that,
Yeah.
Episkyros actually shares a lineage with rugby and American football.
Oh, wow. So those are like distant cousins.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They might seem like totally different sports,
Yeah.
but they're all branches of the same ancient tree.
I love that.
Yeah. And, speaking of family trees,
Yeah.
the Romans actually adopted a version of Episkyros.
Oh, really? What'd they call it?
They called it Harpastum, and they brought it to Britain in 43 AD.
So those disciplined Roman soldiers
Right.
playing this,
Brutal, yeah. According to historical accounts, pretty much anything went except killing.
seriously, no rules at all.
Well, not many. It involved small teams battling it out for possession of a small hardball. Like in Episkyros, the focus was on teamwork and coordination.
Makes sense for Roman legionnaires, so not all Roman entertainment was gladiators.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that even a prominent physician named Galen,
Galen.
yeah, he actually recommended Harpastum for exercise and strategy. He believed it was safer than wrestling or running.
Yeah, I can imagine those Roman wrestling matches getting pretty intense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so now let's move on to another game with Roman roots. But this one took a wild turn in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Calcio Fiorentino.
Calcio Fiorentino, okay.
Now, get ready for this. This game involved 54 players.
You're kidding. 54
Oh,
players.
no, crazy.
Right?
That's insane.
Two teams of 27 each.
So basically, two small armies.
They battled it out on a sand-covered pitch,
Right.
about the size of a modern football field.
Wow, that's massive.
With 15 players on each team designated as attackers, you can imagine things got pretty rough.
Oh, I bet it was chaos.
It was. They allowed using both hands and feet, and the level of aggression was legendary. They even needed 8 officials to try and keep things under control.
Wow. 8 officials. That's insane.
It tells you everything you need to know about how intense this game was. And here's a wild fact.
Okay.
A famous match of Calcio Fiorentino was played in 1530, right in the middle of the siege of Florence.
What? During a siege?
I know, right?
Who was besieging them?
By Emperor Charles V's troops.
Wow. That's a story. I know. Whether it was an act of defiance or just a way to distract themselves from the hardship.
Right.
It speaks volumes about how much people needed to play, even in the worst of times.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And get this, they revived Calcio Fiorentino in 1930.
Really?
And it's still played in Florence to this day.
That's wild.
Though I hear they've toned down the violence a bit.
Well, headbutts and punches are still allowed.
Oh.
So it's not exactly a non-contact sport.
Maybe we'll just watch from the sidelines.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, one more stop for today.
Okay, where to?
Let's head to medieval France, to a game with possible Viking origins.
Oh. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's called Soule,
Soule. Oh.
played with both hands and feet. So what made Soule so different? The scale and the chaos.
Okay, I need details.
There was no defined playing field.
Oh, wow.
Entire villages would participate,
Seriously?
and matches could last a whole day or even longer.
Wow, that's more like a festival than a game.
I know, right? It was wild, but it got out of hand.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they eventually had to suppress Soule.
Because of the violence.
Well, yeah, but also they felt it was distracting peasants from their duties.
Like military training.
Yeah, among
Yeah.
other things.
It's funny how that same concern came up in England around the same time.
Right.
So did it die out completely?
Well, it still survives in some parts of France, but on a much smaller scale, of course.
It's amazing how these traditional games can find a way to live on.
I know, right? Even when society tries to tame them.
They find a way. It's that human desire to play, to compete, to connect.
Exactly. So speaking of games that refuse to die, let's go back to England now
Okay.
to meet the rowdy ancestor of modern football, the medieval English football of carnival.
Oh, this is the one where they kicked a ball toward a millstone embedded in a river wall, right? And anything goes as long as you don't kill anyone.
That's the one.
That's intense.
It was, and it was a descendant of Soule.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And it involved entire communities in this chaotic, brutal free-for-all.
That's a far cry from the structured sport we know today.
I know, right? But that's where the 19th century comes in. This is where football starts to take a more organized form.
Okay, so what happened in the 19th century?
Well, football found a new home in English schools and universities.
Ah, so a more structured setting.
Exactly. And that's when they realized, hey, we need some rules here.
Makes sense.
The chaotic, free-flowing nature of medieval football just wasn't going to work in a school setting.
Yeah, you need some order,
Right.
some structure.
So how did they go about creating those rules?
Well, there was a pivotal step in this evolution. In 1848, the Cambridge Rules were developed.
Okay.
And while they weren't quite the modern rule book,
Yeah.
they introduced some key concepts,
Like what?
like restricting handling the ball
Okay.
and trying to limit rough play.
So it's getting a little less brutal.
A little. It's a process.
It's starting to resemble the game we know today. But 1863 was the real turning point.
Oh, what happened in 1863?
That's when the Football Association, or FA, was founded.
Okay.
And they set about establishing a unified set of rules. This is when they really drew a line between football and rugby.
So the FA was like the architect of modern football.
Yeah, pretty much. And one of the most important rules they made was the prohibition of carrying the ball or passing it with hands.
Wow, that's huge.
It was a game changer.
I bet. How do you think that rule changed things?
Well, by limiting hand use, it forced players to develop new skills, new strategies. It led to a more dynamic, fluid style of play.
Right.
And that's what really set football apart from rugby.
So the FA really left their mark on the game. What else did they do?
Well, they outlawed tripping and kicking opponents.
Oh, wow. I guess they were serious about toning down the violence.
They were, and then in 1871, they introduced something else that seems obvious to us now, but was revolutionary at the time.
Okay, what's that?
The referee.
Ah, the referee. Can you imagine those early matches without someone to enforce the rules?
It must have been total chaos.
Talk about a tough job.
But their presence was essential. It brought order to the game and helped to ensure fair play.
It's amazing how much impact a single person can have on the game.
So we've got the players, we've got the rules, we've got the ref.
Right.
But what about the goals? Were they still kicking the ball at millstones embedded in river walls?
Huh, I doubt it.
No. But those early goalposts were still a far cry from what we see today.
Oh, so?
Well, at first they were just two posts.
Nah.
No crossbar, no net.
Oh, wow. So how'd they know if a goal was scored?
It was pretty subjective. They'd sometimes stretch a rope between the posts, but a lot of times it was just up to the players and the, well, often non-existent referee to decide.
Sounds like a lot of room for arguments.
I'm sure there were plenty, but they eventually realized they needed something better.
Right.
So by the late 19th century, the rigid crossbar became standard. But it was the next innovation that really changed everything, and it came from a pretty unexpected place.
Oh, I love those stories. Tell me more.
It was a Liverpool engineer named John Alexander Brodie in 1889.
Okay.
And he saw all these disputes about whether the ball had crossed the line or not, and he thought, there's got to be a better way. He invented the net.
The net. It seems so obvious now.
I know, right?
But back then, it was brilliant.
It was. It not only ended those debates about goals, but it also paved the way for more accurate record keeping, so we could track those stats.
So Brodie's invention wasn't just about fairness. It actually helped bring in a whole new era of data-driven analysis in football.
It did. Okay, so as the rules and the equipment were evolving, something else was happening too.
Oh, what's that?
Football was becoming a business.
Ah, professionalization.
Exactly. And it all started with Sheffield FC.
Sheffield FC.
Founded in 1857, they're considered the world's first professional football club.
So they were the pioneers, paying their players to play.
They were, but why? Why did they start doing that?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors. First, football was gaining popularity. Larger crowds meant more revenue from ticket sales, so clubs had the means to compensate players.
Yeah, they could afford it.
Right. But it was also about competition. As the game got more popular, the desire to win became even stronger.
So clubs started paying to attract the best players.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was an investment in success. Attract the best players, win more games, attract even more fans, and generate more revenue. It's a cycle that's still driving the business of football today.
It's amazing how these economic forces shaped the early development of the game.
It really is. And for players, it meant they could focus on football as a career, not just a hobby. They could dedicate more time to training, honing their skills, pushing their limits. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was their livelihood.
Right, so it's this whole shift in perspective, but not everyone was happy about it.
Well, some people, especially those who really value the amateur spirit, they saw professionalism as this, corrupting influence. They worried that the money would taint the purity of the sport.
That's a debate that still goes on today.
It does. That tension between the love of the game and the business of the game.
Exactly.
But in the end, the momentum towards professionalism was too strong to resist.
And it's the model that's dominated the game ever since.
It has. But it's interesting to look back and see how those early debates reflected the changing values of society.
It's a reminder that sports are never just about sports. Okay, I want to circle back to the football net for a second.
Oh, right. Brodie's brilliant invention.
Exactly. It's incredible how something so simple could have such a huge impact.
Well, before the net,
Yeah.
determining whether a goal was scored,
Right.
it was subjective, up for debate, and ripe for disagreements.
It must have been a nightmare trying to officiate those games.
You said it. Imagine the arguments, the disputes, the chaos.
The net really did bring order to the game. No more ambiguity, just a clear and definitive way to know when a goal was scored.
And it led to accurate record keeping and detailed statistics.
Right. But it also changed something else, don't you think?
What do you mean?
It changed the emotional experience of the game.
Oh, right. It took away the doubt.
Exactly. Before the net, there was always this lingering uncertainty about whether a goal had actually been scored.
Yeah.
But the net, with its sound and that visual confirmation,
Right.
it created this moment of pure joy, this irrefutable moment of victory.
Yeah, you're right. And a simple invention changing not just the rules, but the emotions of the game.
It's really amazing. And speaking of innovation, let's talk about the role of technology in football's evolution.
Absolutely. Technology has had a profound impact on how the game is played, experienced, and understood. I mean, think about everything from new materials for boots and balls to the use of video replays.
It's true. And it's not always been about fairness or efficiency either.
Oh, right. Like slow motion replays.
Exactly. Those were all about enhancing the spectacle, giving viewers a chance to savor those moments of brilliance.
It's about making the experience richer, more immersive.
Exactly. And that trend is only going to continue, right?
Yeah, I think so. What kind of technological advancements do you see shaping the future of football?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something we're going to dive into in our next episode, so stay tuned for that.
So where were we?
Mm.
Yes, technology and the future of football.
Right, like what's coming next? What's going to totally change the game as we know it?
Well, I think one area that's really interesting is how we use artificial intelligence, AI,
okay.
and virtual reality
Okay.
in training and analysis.
So how would that work?
Well, imagine players being able to practice in a virtual environment.
Oh, wow.
Like honing their skills against simulated opponents.
Okay, so kind of like a video game?
It's more than that.
Okay.
They could analyze their own performance in such detail.
So it's personalized training, but like high tech.
Exactly. And they could work on their weaknesses.
Oh, right.
And even simulate playing against certain opponents.
Wow, that's incredible.
And for coaches,
Yeah.
AI could analyze like tons of data.
Right.
And it could provide insights into player performance, tactical trends.
So it's like having a super smart assistant coach.
It is. And this technology is not just about training and analysis. It's going to change how we watch football, too.
You mean like streaming and stuff?
Yeah, think about it. We're already moving away from traditional television to these services where we can watch games whenever, wherever.
Yeah, on our phones, laptops, whatever. So what's next? What's even more interactive?
Well, imagine choosing your camera angle.
Oh, wow.
Accessing real-time player stats, maybe even interacting with other fans during the game.
So it's bringing the stadium experience home, but even better because you get all this extra stuff.
Exactly. And with virtual reality, you might even feel like you're on the pitch.
Wow, that's crazy. So it sounds like technology is going to completely revolutionize the game.
It probably will, but even with all those advancements, football's still about those core elements, like
skill, the passion.
Exactly, the teamwork.
That's what draws people in.
It's the human element of the game.
Right, and that's never going to change.
I agree. But we can't forget about the women's game. Their journey has been intertwined with the evolution of football as a whole.
Right, and they have faced a lot of challenges along the way.
They have. For so long, women were discouraged, even prevented from playing football.
Because it was seen as a man's game.
Right. Too rough, too demanding.
But they kept playing anyway.
They did.
Yeah.
And their persistence is inspiring.
They created their own leagues, challenged the norms, and paved the way for future generations of players.
And now we're seeing this surge in popularity for women's football.
Oh, yeah. The attendance, the investment, the media coverage.
It's amazing. Their skill, their athleticism, and their passion are finally getting the recognition they deserve.
And there's this whole movement behind them.
Oh, for sure.
Of fans, coaches, administrators, sponsors.
All pushing for equality in football.
It's not just about fairness.
Right.
It's about recognizing their talent and the potential of the women's game.
It's about inclusivity.
Exactly. It's really inspiring to see how far they've come.
It is. So we've talked about the past, the present.
Right.
But what about the future? What's next for football?
Yeah.
What will be the defining moments?
Yeah, what's going to shake things up in the next 10, 20 years?
Well, technology will obviously play a huge role, but one area I think is really interesting is officiating.
Oh, are you talking about robot refs?
Not necessarily robots, but I do think we'll see more technology used in decision-making.
Okay.
Like maybe sensors and AI to track the ball and players.
So it could call offsides.
Yes, fouls, maybe even handballs.
That would eliminate a lot of controversy, but wouldn't we lose the human element?
Well, I don't think technology should completely replace human refs.
Right.
There's an art to officiating, a feel for the game.
It's about more than just following the rules.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
technology could be a tool to help make calls more accurate and consistent.
Yeah, so it's about finding the right balance between human judgment and technology.
Exactly. And what about how fans experience the game?
Oh, right. We were talking about streaming and interactive features.
Yeah, I think it's going to get even more immersive. Imagine multiple camera angles, choosing your commentators, interacting with players.
That would be incredible. So much control, so much immersion.
And it would create all sorts of new possibilities for fan engagement and the commercial side of the game.
It's mind-blowing to think about what's possible. But even with all these changes, the essence of football will remain the same, right?
Of course. It's about those two teams striving for victory, those moments of brilliance that captivate us all.
It's about the human drama, the athleticism, the unpredictability.
And that's what makes football so universally appealing. It transcends borders, languages, cultures.
It unites us in a shared love of the game.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about those stories that football creates, those narratives that make it so much more than just a game.
Yes, every match, every tournament, every career is a story waiting to be told. There's the triumph, the heartbreak, the individual brilliance, the collective effort.
And those stories become part of our collective memory, our shared cultural narrative.
It's how we connect, how we share our passion for the game.
We remember where we were, who we were with, how we felt during those iconic moments.
Right, like those World Cup finals.
Exactly, those last-minute goals, those legendary farewell matches.
Football creates these shared experiences that transcend the boundaries of the pitch.
They shape our conversations, inspire art, even influence fashion and politics.
It's woven into everything.
It's more than just entertainment. It's a powerful force for social change.
Right, it can break down barriers, challenge prejudice, promote understanding.
It can empower individuals, challenge stereotypes, create opportunities for dialogue. Think about its role in promoting racial equality, gender equality, inclusivity.
It's a platform to amplify voices, challenge norms, advocate for a more just world.
And it's not a perfect solution, but it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Football has pushed society forward, both on and off the pitch.
That's why understanding its cultural significance is so important. It helps us appreciate its impact on our lives, our communities, our worldviews.
Football is a reflection of who we are, where we've been, and where we're going.
What a journey it's been. From ancient origins to the modern phenomenon, it's a story that continues to unfold.
It's been incredible to explore this journey with you and share it with our listener. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of wonder and a desire to keep exploring this amazing world of football.
We've unearthed its ancient roots, witnessed its transformation, but the story doesn't end here.
It's a story that's still being written, with each generation adding its own chapter.
So keep exploring, keep learning, keep sharing your passion.
The future of football is in your hands. Until next time, may your football journeys be filled with joy, excitement, and a deep appreciation for this incredible sport.
You know, it's amazing when you think about it.
What's that?
How this game,
Yeah.
that basically started with just kicking a ball around just for fun, has turned into this global phenomenon
I know, it's crazy.
with such a long history and so much potential.
It really is mind-boggling when you consider everything we've talked about.
It is, right. We've gone from ancient origins to cultural adaptations, technological advancements, the growth of women's football, and even what the future might hold.
Yeah, and we've seen how football reflects our values.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Our priorities, what we want to achieve.
That's not just entertainment, it shows us who we are.
Yeah, it's like this cultural mirror.
Exactly.
But I think before we wrap up,
Yeah.
we should touch on something
Okay.
you mentioned earlier, like the cultural impact,
Oh, right.
the stuff that goes beyond the actual game.
It's about identity, belonging, the stories we build around the sport. Football can bring people together.
I mean, think about those World Cup finals,
Oh, yeah.
those last-minute winning goals, a player's final match.
Right. It's more than just a game at that point.
It's like a collective memory,
Yeah.
shared by millions. It's true. We talk about it for years.
Right.
We tell those stories.
Yeah, like where we were, who we were with, how it made us feel.
It all becomes part of our personal story and the history of football itself.
It's like football creates this shared language.
It does.
And it's not just those big events either.
Right, everywhere, right.
Right, like we talk about it at work. It influences fashion,
Music, art,
even politics sometimes.
it's everywhere you look.
Yeah, football's woven into the fabric of our lives.
It is.
And it has the potential to really change things.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It can challenge prejudice, promote understanding.
Right, and bring communities together.
It can give people a voice, challenge norms, make the world more just and equal.
Like its role in breaking down racial and gender barriers.
Absolutely. And creating a more inclusive environment.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's helped to move things in the right direction.
I agree. Football's been a force for progress.
It's a reminder that it's more than just a game.
It shows us who we are.
Where we've been and where we might be headed.
It's a story that's still being written.
With every match, every goal, every moment of shared passion.
It's been an amazing journey exploring this with you
I've loved it.
and sharing these insights.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah,
I really hope our listeners will keep exploring this world.
I hope so too. We've uncovered the origins, the global reach, the transformation into what it is today.
But the story doesn't end here.
Every match, every goal, every moment adds to that story.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and share your passion for the beautiful game. Until next time.